You know, every single day, we're all creating this massive digital version of ourselves. All those photos, emails, documents, random downloads, it just piles up. But have you ever really stopped to ask what happens to all that stuff after you're gone? It's a question that, believe me, takes us to some surprisingly deep places.
First, though, let's start with a feeling I think we all know. You're looking at a folder just packed with old files, or maybe an inbox with thousands of unread emails, and you can't bring yourself to hit delete. Why is that so hard?
Well, it turns out there's actually a name for this: digital hoarding. It's the excessive, kind of compulsive saving of digital content way beyond what we could ever possibly use or need. And if you think you're alone in this, some surveys suggest that up to a quarter of us could probably be considered digital hoarders.
Now, what's really fascinating here is that this isn't just about being a little disorganized or, lazy. The impulse to save everything is actually rooted in some very real and very human psychology.
I mean, think about all the reasons we hold on. There's that fear of missing out, that FOMO. What if I need that article later? Of course, there's sentimental attachment to old photos and messages. For a lot of people, there's a genuine anxiety about deleting something important by accident. Saving files can also give us this illusion of control in a pretty chaotic world. Or it can feed our perfectionism. You got to keep all those drafts, just in case. And sometimes, let's be honest, it's just plain old avoidance. It's easier than making a decision.
So yeah, we hoard data for all these deep-seated reasons, and it creates a bit of digital clutter. Big deal, right? Well, the consequences of this go far beyond just slowing down your laptop or making it hard to find a file. And this is the crucial point. All of those files, all those posts, and all those photos, your entire digital life, it doesn't just disappear when you do. It becomes a kind of digital ghost, an archive of you that continues to exist long after you're gone.
And just to give you an idea of the sheer scale we're talking about, get this, researchers project that by the year 2100, there could be as many as 4.9 billion profiles of deceased users on Facebook alone.
What that means is our social platforms are literally transforming from spaces for the living into these vast digital graveyards. We are, all of us, collectively creating the largest cemetery in human history, and most of us don't even realize we're doing it.
But of course, creating spaces to remember the dead, that's nothing new. Humans have always looked for ways to manage that relationship, to memorialize loved ones and maintain some kind of connection. The technology is new, for sure, but the impulse is ancient.
It's been a long evolution, really. Back in the Middle Ages, your status was literally tied to how close you were buried to a church. Then, you fast forward to the 19th century, and mourning becomes more public with these beautiful garden cemeteries. The 20th century gave us those spontaneous memorials, flowers at the side of a road. And then, in 1996, things went digital. The first online cemeteries were born. And that brings us to today, where a social media profile becomes a permanent, interactive memorial for anyone in the world to visit.
And this shift is just fundamental. A physical memorial is stuck in one place. A digital one is accessible from anywhere. A gravestone decays over time. A profile is potentially permanent, or at least enduring. A plaque is static, it never changes. A Facebook wall is interactive. It can grow and evolve for years. It changes the very nature of mourning, from a private act that happens in a public space to a public performance that happens in a networked space.
And that leads us to a really difficult question. When we post a tribute online, are we expressing authentic, genuine grief? Or are we, maybe without even realizing it, performing for an audience?
The writer Lionel Trilling captured this so perfectly way back in 1972. He wrote that we often sincerely act the part of the sincere person. It's such a paradox, right? We can genuinely feel something, but the way we choose to express it is still a kind of performance, shaped by how we want other people to see us.
Sociologists actually have a term for this. They call it impression management. It's that process of carefully curating the version of ourselves that we present to others. And even in grief, we're managing that impression. We might hide some details while we highlight others, all to present this kind of idealized version of our grieving self.
So what does this performance of grief look like online? Well, it often starts with idealizing the person who's passed, presenting this perfect, flawless memory. Then we curate what we share and we conform our emotional expressions to what we think an online audience expects to see. And sometimes we even have to defend our right to mourn against the grief police, people who might call our tribute inappropriate.
This creates a real dilemma for us. Online, we're afraid our grief will be misinterpreted without body language or tone of voice. There's this unspoken pressure to follow these invisible grieving rules.
We feel anxiety about being judged for sharing too much, or even worse, for not being sincere enough. And the result? Sometimes these tributes become so polished and so perfect that they end up obscuring the messy, complicated, real person that we've lost.
So all of this, the data we hoard, the digital memorials, the performance of grief, it all raises a final and absolutely crucial question about the future. When it comes to your own digital legacy, what control do you really have? Is it even your choice?
See, for a long time, the main idea in psychology has been this theory of continuing bonds. It basically says that grieving isn't about letting go, but about finding a new way to maintain a connection with the memory of the person who's died. But it's always been a one-way street. We speak to them, but of course they don't speak back.
But with the explosion of artificial intelligence, that one-way relationship is about to change forever. What happens when that massive digital archive you've left behind can be used to bring a version of you back to life? This is what's being called AI-driven recreation. The idea is to take all of a person's digital data, their social media posts, their writing style, even their voice notes, and feed all of it into an AI to create a virtual digital persona. It's essentially a chatbot that can interact, communicate, and simulate them. And this technology just throws open a complete Pandora's box of ethical questions. I mean, is it psychologically healthy to have a two-way conversation with the dead? Who gets to give consent for something like this? Does it actually help people grieve, or does it just trap them? And is this an authentic extension of a person, or is it just a very sophisticated puppet made of data?
It's so easy to just dismiss this as science fiction, but it is already happening. We're seeing documentaries of mothers interacting with VR versions of their deceased children. There are companies right now offering to create AI avatars of your loved ones. This isn't some far-off future. This is the new reality.
And because of that, we're now facing a really fundamental choice. On one side, you've got digital erasure, the right to have a definitive end, the right to be forgotten. And on the other, you've got digital immortality, a simulated, data-driven continuation of your life that could go on forever.
It's not a theoretical question anymore. The technology is here to ensure some version of you can continue to interact with the world long after you're physically gone. So we're all left with this really simple but profound question. Your digital self could live forever. Is that what you want?